Wait. Hello, I'm Dr. Deborah Kern, and I've created this presentation in response to so many people in my community who are feeling confused, frustrated, frightened, anxious, um, and lost a little bit. And they keep saying, what is going on? What's going on all around us? Why is there so much inhumane treatment of other humans? Where is humanity on this journey of conscious evolution? And where am I on this path with humanity? So I wanted to share two teachers that I have been so blessed to have studied with in the past. On the left, you see Dr. Robert Keck, among many other things, including being a polio survivor. Dr. Keck is a United Methodist minister and an evolutionary theologian. And on the right, you see Barbara Marx Hubbard, who is an evolutionary futurist, truly a visionary and a social innovator. Dr. Keck has passed away. Barbara Marx Hubbard is still very much alive. I would say that Dr. Keck is still very much alive through his teachings. People like myself who studied with him, his work lives through us. And they both, gosh, I started studying with Dr. Keck in the 90s, but he was writing in the 70s. And Barbara Marx Hubbard has had a question guiding her through her whole life since 1945. And the question that she has that's guided her is, what is the use of our powers that is good? So what I'm sharing with you is not new information. Both of these individuals have devoted their lives to looking at conscious evolution and how humanity is evolving. So I just want to share with you a bit that I learned from them because it helps me put into perspective what's going on around me, and my prayer is that it does that for you as well. So this is from Robert Keck, and I'll give you resources at the end, but you will find these thoughts in books like Sacred Eyes and Sacred Quest. How Robert Keck distilled the journey of humanity is he said, let's consider humanity as a person. And in a person's life, there is a childhood. And he calls that epoch one of the evolutionary journey, the childhood of the journey of humanity. And in recorded history, we can see from 35,000 years ago till 10,000 years ago, we were in what he called the childhood, which is where we were in unity or at-one-ment with nature. We had a profound respect for the power of animals, just like kids. You know, kids are so at one with nature and at one with animals. You can see cave paintings are mostly of animals, and there is an emphasis on the feminine, which is true for children. Children oftentimes are looking for their mother. The mother is more important in early childhood than the father, generally speaking. And so the same was in the childhood of our evolutionary journey. The emphasis was on the feminine. We had matricentric cultures. And just to be clear, that's not matrilineal necessarily, not matriarchal, but matricentric and matrilineal. What that means is matricentric means women were at the center of things. So, for example, one simple example is that time could be measured using a woman's cycle. So she had 13 cycles, 13 moons per year. And there was a way to calculate when to plant crops based on when women's cycles were. So that puts the women at the center. Matrilineal means that you trace the family line through the mother line, but not matriarchal. Archy indicates something over something else, hierarchy. So it was not archical. There was nobody over anyone. So the women were not over the men. It's just that the feminine was at the center, and family genetics were traced through the mother line. There's also no evidence of human on human violence. In any of those paintings on caves, there's no evidence of human on human violence. And Dr. Keck was really clear. He did a lot of research because he said it's very popularized in the media to say, well, it's just human nature to be violent against other human. That's not actually true. This was not originally part of our history, it was not human on human violence. Other aspects of Epic One, or the childhood of our evolutionary journey, are that soul level values were part of human life. And how they could tell this is when you look at archaeological digs, what they dig up, they would find spiritual items that had no functional purpose as a part of everyday human life. They worshipped more an immanent and very present earth goddess, which is understandable given the emphasis upon that which gives and nourishes life. Spirituality was a high priority in the childhood of our evolutionary journey. So that is just a snippet of 35,000 years to 10,000 years ago. And as children do, we grew into adolescence. The adolescence of our evolutionary journey, he calls Epoch 2. This is when it's from 10,000 years ago till about the present. In Dr. Keck's lectures, he would say till about 1960s. Things started to shift in the 60s. They're still shifting. We're at the end, currently we're at the end of adolescence. And I'll speak more to that in a bit. But we're at the end of adolescence. And you notice that this period is shorter. The first one was 25,000 years, and this is a 10,000 year period. So anyway, think of adolescence. Just think in your own life, especially if you've raised children, there's quite a difference between the child and the adolescent. I taught 7th and 8th grade for a while. I know a good bit about adolescence, and I was one myself, and so were you. So you know what it's like. There's a big focus in adolescence on the development of the mental mind, the ego, self-identity. So that's why every generation, when they hit adolescence, they have to have their own music and their own fashion. They need to say, this is me and that is the other. Separation. This is a time for separation. And this is also a time where in our evolutionary journey, we developed agriculture and horticulture and animal husbandry. We started separating and dividing, which then led to manipulation and control. During adolescence, there's a sense of selfish anthropocentrism. And anthropocentrism is simply where we believe humanity is the end-all be-all and the rest of nature is just there to serve us. Keck says, think about the teenager with his mom, for instance. The teenager just wants his mom to fill the fridge and drive him to the mall, basically. Just feed me, be the unending source of my food, but that's kind of it. So being selfish and then dominating nature using violence. That's just part of what happens in adolescence of our journey. The values of this time period are patriarchal. So remember earlier in childhood, we had matricentric, matrilineal. Then we shifted to patriarchy. So now we come into hierarchy, someone over, dominance over. We start separating and having control over using a hierarchy. And this is also where we begin his story. So his story is what we know of the adolescence of our journey. Another value of adolescence is perpetual improvement and achievement and acquisition, continual acquisition. I think you can see that's pretty much where we've been. Now, at the end of adolescence, we move into adulthood and spiritual maturity. And I remember so well sitting and listening to Dr. Keck many times, and he would always pause here and say, unless we commit teenage suicide first. Because the values of the adolescents don't lend themselves towards sustainability. So we are at that point. And he also is clear to say it won't take thousands of years. It will happen in a matter of decades because time has sped up. So in Epoch 3, which is we are moving into Epoch 3, and just like any transition, when you look at the evolution of a species, there are some aspects, some parts are already shifting there, others are staying in the old way, and you can feel it all around you. You can feel people, some wanting to grasp and keep the patriarchy the way it was, keep control and separation and use of violence to dominate others. You can feel that some wish to keep us in adolescence, while others are ready to mature and move into adulthood, spiritual maturity. These are the signs of spiritual maturity in adulthood, according to Dr. Keck. There's a reconnection with nature. There's an ecology of the heart, absolutely no tolerance for systems of dominance and submission. Patriarchal institutions either change or die. They cannot continue into spiritual maturity as they were in adolescence. The entire universe now is seen as an unbroken whole. We do recognize distinction of parts, but their value, we place the value in the whole. So yes, we can see that, for instance, I'm a human and this is an animal. There is distinction, but we value their place in the whole. We don't use dominance with violence anymore. And we move. Now we're not matrilineal, matricentric, nor patriarchal. We move into a partnership model, the partnership of the feminine and the masculine. Partnership is where spiritual maturity moves us. According to Barbara Marx Hubbard, who I mentioned earlier, in a movie, a documentary she created called Humanity Ascending, patriarchal leaders in a dominator structure at the heads of existing institutions and nation states cannot guide our species to the next stage of evolution. She also says there are powers so great right now that if they are misused on this earth, they will destroy us. But if we see that our journey is to restore this earth and free ourselves from the current suffering and to explore the further reaches of the human spirit, we may see that our new capacities are given to us as the tools of our conscious evolution. What I know is that in order to use these new capacities, we must be attracted to an image of our future that draws us forward. This is something that, if you're taking my classes regularly, we talk about it pretty much every class. We've got to keep our imagination moving, pulling us forward. Let ourselves be pulled forward by what we desire to co-create, rather than constantly focusing on what we're afraid of. Because when we stay in focusing on what we're afraid of, it keeps us constricted. Now, I'm not saying we don't pay attention to what's going on. We absolutely must be informed and use the information to move us forward. But in order to move forward, we have to have an image. And in her documentary, Humanity Ascending, Barbara Marx Hubbard uses the image of the caterpillar who transforms ultimately into the butterfly. So I hope this helps you as it did me, just thinking about this metaphor. Because what happens, and there's a researcher named Nori Huddle who looked at all the processes of caterpillar to butterfly, and what she showed is that the caterpillar creates this chrysalis and then it gets bloated with too much food. And within the caterpillar, there are these little imaginal discs, and these imaginal discs carry the genetic code of the coming butterfly. But the caterpillar recognizes the discs as foreign substances and tries to kill them. Now, this is interesting, and Barbara Marx Hubbard points this out, and many other futurists and evolutionary people do, that this happened in our culture as well. If you think about in the 60s, you can see this as a time where there were imaginal discs in the form of humans, individuals like John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King, who are holding an image of what we could become, but they were assassinated. They were assassinated because the body of humanity considered them foreign, didn't recognize them. Same as this within the body of the caterpillar, these first imaginal discs, they're killed by the immune system of the caterpillar. But the program in those discs is such that they proliferate anyway, and they start becoming imaginal cells. And this is a really wonderful word, because an imaginal cell holds the image of the butterfly to come. The immune system keeps trying to kill them, but there's so many of them, and they start to connect with each other. They begin to resonate with each other, and they begin to proliferate so rapidly that at some point, the immune system of the caterpillar surrenders. The caterpillar just gives up, and the imaginal cells take that substance of the caterpillar and transform it into the butterfly. So Barbara Marx Hubbard says, and I agree with her, it's pretty obvious how this image relates to us. We had a few imaginal discs, some that I just mentioned in the 60s, some perhaps were the leaders of major religions that the body of humanity didn't recognize. But now what's happening is we're becoming the body of a butterfly. Each human being who has some impulse or some image of a better world, who has some sense of a world beyond the strife, beyond suffering, a world where our creativity is used, is an imaginal cell in the body of humanity. And we're beginning to resonate with each other and coalesce. And we're at that stage, possibly, of seeing a picture of the composite of what our imaginal cells could make if we could put all of ourselves together. So just like this butterfly is a miracle, we are right now in the process of a miracle as well. We're beginning to put ourselves into the story. We're at a major quantum transformation. But the key now is for each one of us to realize that we are an expression of this process of creation, and that as we allow our motivation to be spirit breaking through with us and connecting us with each other, and when we awaken to the fact that we are all part of this living body, we can see the possibility within our lifetime of shifting the energy on Earth from devolution, competition, and destruction to connectivity, creativity, and a future so magnificent that will attract us beyond competition, beyond war, to a future of literally infinite capacity. And this is what Barbara Marx Hubbard says. She says, this is our challenge. This is our opportunity. It's the great journey we're on. So I hope that helps you. And I know I'm on this journey with you. And I love connecting to all of you, especially I love when I teach my classes and retreats, we get to see each other in person, but even here in the interwebs, this is my way of connecting with you and offering you context and hope. So if you want to learn more about Barbara Marx Hubbard, her website is her name, barbaramarxhubbard.com. She has books and this DVD called Humanity Ascending. And honestly, I wish everybody had that. As soon as that DVD came out, I bought so many copies. I gave them to my son's Montessori school. I wanted everyone to see that DVD. So I highly recommend that you purchase it, show it to your family, your friends, your communities. And then Robert Keck has books, Sacred Eyes, Sacred Quest, and Healing as a Sacred Path. So may these resources inform you, support you, fuel you toward the future you're desiring to create.